Pandaria is not even out yet, and we are already in controversy. I think this is actually really funny, because this is a window into what the hell Blizzard is thinking about Classic. And I think after, what was it, 12 years? I think it was 12 years when Dragon Soul came out. The people are finally vindicated. This is something that we knew, and this is something that Blizzard also knew, but they knew, and this is an important lesson. Once you put something in the game, even if it is bad for the game, it is impossible to take it away. Okay, so what's the controversy? Looking for Raid will not be available in Mist of Pandaria. Raid Finder in MoP Classic. The journey through development of the Classic expansions has given us countless opportunities to look back into the intent and the outcomes of decisions that the original team made about certain features. Fortunately, we have gotten to discuss them with the same team members who made them because they are still here at Blizzard. Interesting. So are they in retail? They are not working on Classic, I assure you that, like it's mostly new people. We have also listened intently to players as they recounted their memories and experiences with the original content, which they have been given the incredible opportunity to bring to life once again, both for players who experienced this first back in the day, as well as new players living it for the first time. Okay, here we go. In 2011, this is actually really interesting. Raiding was a relatively niche activity, largely limited to organized guild groups that expected a fixed raiding schedule, and pickup groups doing content were non-existent on most realms. Okay, this is a bold-faced lie. Are you telling me that POGs didn't exist before MoP? What the hell? It wasn't that long ago, man. Like, people were alive back then. People are... What? People POG'd all the time. I don't think Karazhan was done with like a raid group ever. I think like most people did Karazhan on POGs. Like the overwhelming majority, like Solgorov, AQ20. What about those? And yes, people POG'd Mortal Core, people POG'd BWL. That happened all the time. It did. Was POGing as common as it is today? No, maybe. But it was still extremely common. It was still absolutely something you would see on a server every single day. That's just BS. I don't know what the hell they are talking about. Especially we're talking like Rato the Lich King or TBC. I think that was the peak of POGing. If anything, it was Cataclysm's jump in difficulty where POGing actually started dying. But okay, we're gonna talk about that too. DOS. The development team introduced Raid Finder towards the end of Cataclysm to make raiding more accessible, despite recognizing that it would weaken social bonds, because so few people were actually getting to face the Lich King or see Ragnaros after playing through Molten Front content. That's also not true. After they put the ICC buff and they nerfed the entire raid to the ground, people were also POGing ICC all the time. Even back then with terrible players, people were doing 10-man ICC normal all the freaking time. Were they doing heroic POGs? No. But they were absolutely POGing the Lich King all the time. They just were doing it later than everybody else because they were casual and they progressed slower, and that's the name of the game. In Progression Classic, however, we have seen far more players participating in normal raiding, and there is every reason to expect that will continue into Mist Classic. Considering all points of view and weighing our opinions very carefully, we have made the decision to develop MoP Classic without the Raid Finder system. Classic progression realms have evolved differently over the last 5 years than original WoW did from 2007 to 2012. Classic players have built a robust and consistent raiding ecosystem, and we believed that moving into MoP Classic without a raid finder system will set the stage for a stronger raiding community to emerge. Of course, that leaves us with two questions. How will players progress through the legendary quest, and how will players obtain Raid Finder tier gear? Because actually LFR was one of the best ways to gear up an ult. It was easy and convenient, and you got like some decent pieces. If I recall correctly, back in MoP, what you were like people did, right? They went to PvP, they got like the PvP bracers, they bought a couple blues, and they could barely get on LFR, and they would just go to LFR and do LFR every lockout. That was the way to get an ult geared up quickly before actually seriously raiding. This is before Mythic Plus. I think in today's WoW, LFR is worthless, and I think Mythic Plus kind of filled in that gap of like a place for people to catch up and get up quickly before raids, introducing Celestial Dungeons. Now I think this is kinda interesting. Celestial Dungeons are a new difficulty in Mist of Pandaria Classic that stands as the culmination of everything we learned from Titan Rune Dungeons in Rato the Lich King Classic and Elemental Rune Dungeons in Cataclysm Classic. So that's what they are basically in Cataclysm, the Twilight Dungeons and whatnot. Celestial Dungeons are a new additional difficulty tier, selectable from the Dungeon Finder, designed for players who are ready to move beyond heroic dungeons, infused with occasional raid level mechanics and enemies, including appearances from bosses of the current raid tier. That's a lot of work, okay? Like for the people that say they don't want to do LFR because it takes work, this is a lot more work than just backporting LFR into the game, right? Like that's bonkers. Inside, players will continue with the August Celestials, gaining powerful blessings, kinda like the dragons in Twilight Dungeons and stuff, to overcome enhanced challenges. Strategic use of these blessings will be the key to success. You are gonna find gear that offers more power than heroic dungeon gear, including all items used to drop in Raid Finder, particularly the raid pieces, items that will be target farmable, as well as random drops. What do you mean target farmable? Are you gonna be able to spam the same dungeon over and over? Is there not gonna be a lockout? Because that would be crazy. Currency dropped by bosses that can be used to purchase a variety of the above, so tokens, and legendary quest progress. That's your legendary cloak and whatnot, you know, the Son of Deathwing, with quest additions made to preserve the lore should players choose to use the Celestial Dungeons rather than raids to progress through the legendary quest chain. And Celestial Dungeons will grow with each raid tier. Now this is great. Throne of Thunder and Siege of Orgrimmar will bring new threats and rewards and new celestial powers to master. Previous tier rewards will remain available, so transmog hunters and collectors won't miss out. Let's be honest here, they are trying to put some of that Mythic Plus back into the game. Now, personally, I think that's freaking awesome. I don't know if I put this in a video, I say this on stream all the time, but my view for a good classic, you know, my view for ideal WoW is hard dungeons and easy raids. Yeah, I got no shame in saying it. I think that's the best way to get the best of both worlds. That's why I really like TBC, for example. And if the best way to get gear outside of raiding, that to go with the raid, is to push yourself and actually do really hard dungeons, that is awesome. I am not a big fan of retail, but I think Mythic Plus was a brilliant system. And hey, if they put Mythic Plus in Classic Plus, I will be happy. I like the idea. Do I like the entire approach of Mythic Plus? Do I like the infinitely scaling part of it? Maybe not, but I like this. So let's take a look at this. Celestial Dungeons will go live 2 weeks after Mogushan Bolts. That's the same as LFR. They open a new boss in LFR every couple weeks after the raid launches. Because that's a concern, right? If this is too early, if you're able to just spam dungeons over and over and over, what if you can get more gear than you used to back in the old MoP? That would also be a problem. That would mess with everything, right? We believe this approach keeps the spirit of Classic alive, rewarding commitment, encouraging social play, and offering meaningful progression while still making content accessible in a more engaging and respectful, I love that word, way. Okay. I think Pandaria was, and it was the first, you know, yeah, Dragon Soul, whatever. It was the first iteration of LFR, and it was by far the worst. LFR was a crucial part of gear progression, with force raiders into going to LFR with their ults. It was so good you had to do it. Everybody got gear that looked exactly the same as the tier gear, with the same freaking set bonuses, and that's a big one. In Pandaria, it wasn't rare to take several LFR pieces, not because you wanted the stats, but because you wanted to get your set bonus. There are some set bonuses in Pandaria that are very strong. For example, the 4-piece tier 15 for the warrior, it gave you a second recklessness cooldown, pretty much. 35% crit for 10 seconds, or the tier 14 set, which gave you 25% damage on Mortal Strike. That's just the 2 set. Set bonuses were really powerful in Pandaria, so LFR allowed people without any gear or raiding experience to get access to the set bonuses immediately almost. So if they put these Celestial Dungeons, which they say they are gonna drop raid gear, if they were before the raids or during the launch of the raids that week, that would be a huge problem, because that would mean that everybody would be doing progression with their set bonuses already. So yeah, that would trivialize a lot of the raid. I totally understand why they are going for 2 weeks later, but overall, I like dungeon content. I think WoW needs way more dungeon content. Now, as you can imagine, people are freaking mad because you cannot take LFR away. Once it's in the game, you can never ever take it away. That's the point, even if it's cancer for the game. But look at the logic. It is crazy. I was looking forward to use Raid Finder on my ults. It looks like I am just gonna be playing on my main. I have zero interest in scheduling raids around multiple characters. For me, LFR was a great way to get a little raiding on ults. Could I just jump when I had the time? Also, no need to find a group that wants your class or your spec. I guess I will just play less and have more time for other games. Why did you want LFR anyway? Like, if that's the end of your game, like, the only goal for having ults is to do LFR, like, holy, why? Pretending that you're hitting the bosses and the bosses do not fight back and you just sit there. You will not be able to enjoy your ults unless you go to pretend raid. You know why they will take you in LFR, like the queue will take you in LFR and they don't care about your class or your spec? Because it doesn't matter what class or spec you take, everything dies anyway. That's the entire point. LFR is just a punching bag for people to catch up in content. Like, they just tell you, okay, we're gonna give you the LFR gear, but you're gonna have to work for it, and all of a sudden people are mad. Crazy. And just like that, I uninstalled Classic. Oh boy, there is zero good reasons for LFR to not be added in MoP, and it should have been with Dragon Soul to begin with, like back in the day. It is very clear, however, whoever is running this show isn't listening to the community at large. Have fun, but I am done. Zero explanation why. This is incredibly disappointing and horrible. This doesn't keep Classic alive. It takes away a core mechanic that I and many other players loved during the expansion. The dungeons are not fun. They are not even out. How do you know if they are not fun? We don't know what they are yet. They are not enjoyable. They are not casual. Okay, so right there, you cannot AFK in a 5-man dungeon because people are gonna see you AFK and they're gonna kick you out. It's not like in MoP where you can just put a follow. I will show you a video that after this. Like, we're not gonna lay it down. An Inferno dungeon takes forever to do and is a... What? Bro, I got a character in Cataclysm like almost 390. I think I'm all over 390 already. It took me a week. Those dungeons are not hard. God help your soul. It takes forever to do and it's a miserable slog, and I suck at the game. Come on. I am not being an elitist here. You've seen me play the game. Come on, reality for a minute. These Celestials will be the same. LFR was fun and enjoyable. I was so damn excited for MoP, so happy to have one of my favorite expansions back, and you kneecap it. I am gonna show you exactly what I'm talking about with MoP and the LFR, because people were talking about this back in the day. It wasn't like in hindsight people think LFR sucks. When it came out, people thought LFR sucked. This is an old video by Preach. You guys know Preach. We love Preach. He was in Method at the time, I think. He was like actually raiding in Method. He made this video when the first Mogushan wing actually came out, I think. And this was his goal. Can I get through LFR and get several boss kills, intentionally doing nothing and being a problem for the group?
This was the most interesting and revealing segment to me, as it became clear that by doing 0 damage, I was practically invisible to the group, even though I was taking more damage than anyone else in most cases, as with 5-mans I was neither noticed or mentioned by anyone. I attempted at one point to make myself more obvious by using the follow command with another rogue. This was in fact the first time I was noticed and removed from the group. More importantly, I wasn't even punished by this. I was able to instantly re-queue. Despite this not being a test of trying to AFK a dungeon, it was interesting to note that only by doing something stupidly obvious would it draw the attention of other players. So we go back to the 0 damage technique, and after a few 0 drop runs, we eventually moved on to phase 3 after a little bit of luck. Phase 3, Throne of Thunder. By this time, it's pretty apparent that I am going to be able to complete this, and as there is no more gear limitations, there's no restrictions on item level anymore, and I have no fears of being removed or even spoken to by any other player. I have been invisible throughout phase 2, so now...
Okay, look, he doesn't show up. He's behind the healers. Oh no, he's right there, okay? He's right there. Last one on the DPS, and there's a holy priest that's doing like almost as much damage as him. Okay, that's the guy.
Now I will attempt to do horrific damage in order to be more noticeable. As I'm playing an assassination rogue, I will simply remove my poisons. Use no slice and dice or envenom. Only rupture. This will effectively cut my DPS by about 70 to 80%, but I will still appear on the damage meter. Interestingly, I wasn't even that far away from other players, which furthers the point that there are so many players who either don't know what they're doing or are simply too lost to care anymore. Lei Shen eventually fell and the experiment is now complete. Final boss of the current game defeated by the worst player imaginable, without consequence, without ever knowing that I was even doing badly. I got no guidance or reason to try harder in any way. Overall, it took me a day's play, including the queue times, to see the latest and greatest raid dungeon Mr. Pandaria has to offer. Of course, the next logical step would be to do normal and heroic modes, but now we must take into account the jump from LFR to even simple normal mode, timed raids, trial process, applications, etc., which in comparison to what was done initially is an enormous leap in commitment, which only a few will take.
Okay, so I think he nailed it pretty articulately. You can literally go into LFR, AFK, do next to nothing. People will not notice you unless you put people on follow. So you can just walk and get on top of the boss and literally do 0 DPS like he did and you are not gonna get noticed. He tried then to do some DPS so he would show up in the meters and people would tell him, why are you not doing any damage? Nobody cares. The boss dies anyway. That's why nobody cares. LFR was never designed to have the bosses not die. LFR was never designed to have the bosses fight back. Now, I ask again, why do people in the forums are so mad they took this away? It is not because they think it's fun. Let's be honest, they want the free gear. And in dungeons, if you do this stuff that he's doing in a 5-man, he's gonna get noticed. He's gonna get kicked. If the dungeon is hard and people wipe, they are gonna ask, why are you doing less than a 10% of the damage you're supposed to? Why are you not taunting the mobs? Why are you not healing? But in LFR, nobody cares because it doesn't matter. I get it. I hate the gatekeeping of Classic. I hate pretending that Vanilla is like this holy game and it was the only hard game and Pandaria is hard, is easy, is a joke. Pandaria is not a joke. Pandaria is really freaking hard. LFR is a joke. And the same developers that did the LFR system, I remember an old Reddit interview, it's gonna take me an eternity to find it, I am not gonna find it, but one of the Blizzard employees said that his biggest regret was making queuing systems. And it's because of this. Even normal is hard in Pandaria. Normal raids are no joke in Pandaria. But every player gets thrown into LFR. Every new player will experience LFR. And when they see it, and they are new and they don't have a lot of experience, and they see that I just killed the boss, and they face no challenge, and they got the same set bonuses and the same gear as everybody else, will that motivate them to keep playing and to actually go into normal? This is why I hate LFR. LFR is not a stepping stone into raiding. It is not a stepping stone into normal. It is not a gateway into actual raiding. It kills new players. It tricks new players into not caring, into never learning. And that's why they had to put a freaking $1 rotation in retail. Because the people that have been playing WoW for 20 years, they know how to play the game. They know how to raid, they can go raid. The people that started playing after Pandaria, they never learned how to play their class because they never had a reason to. And it's been 10 years of not playing your class right. And that was the only solution they could find for it. I agree with Blizzard removing LFR. I think the people that are complaining are not complaining because of honest reasons. I think they do not find LFR fun at all. I think they just want free raid gear. And if all you have to do to get free raid gear is to go to a Twilight dungeon or an Elemental dungeon and clear it, which are not even that hard, all they take is for you to play your class right and to ship the freaking mob and to kick the freaking spell and to not stand on fire, at least that has a fail condition. At least that will incentivize you, that will push you into trying to play well. If the dungeons come out and you think they are too hard, fine, we can have a discussion around it. We can absolutely have a discussion on how hard should the Celestial dungeons be, but this system is poison. And I am glad they finally righted this 12-year-old wrong. Rare Blizzard W. Subscribe, join the Discord, and thank you for watching.